Welcome back to this edition of Burgers and Fries. So, just like the last time, it's just myself and Thriller Wolf, aka Greg. How you doing today?
Doing good.
Well, are you ready to talk about this?
Oh, yeah.
So, in the continuation of the WTF theme, Greg, WTF is going on with Vince McMahon?
Being accused with sexual assault or something?
Oh, it's way more than something. Like, oh my God.
And not to mention, I think I heard that the lady that I was with is no longer getting any money from him.
Yes, and we're definitely going to get into that in just a moment. So, Greg, what is the extent of you knowing anything about WWE or anything regarding wrestling?
Well, I used to watch it when I was younger.
That's okay. What guys did you remember liking?
Stone Cold, Steve Austin.
Oh, there you go. I have been a wrestling fan on and off since 1999. If you were watching Stone Cold Steve Austin, then you definitely knew that Stone Cold was being portrayed as the ultimate anti-hero, the anti-establishment guy, and Vince McMahon played the Mr. McMahon character who was supposed to be the evil corporate boss. The storytelling that they did in those days, it actually kind of led to this second boom in professional wrestling that has never been seen since.
Really?
Oh, by all means. So a lot of people could say, yeah, I loved seeing Stone Cold and The Rock and Triple H and The Undertaker. I still have been watching the product pretty regularly. Subscribe to Peacock, or as we like to nickname it, The Cock. So I can continue to watch all the PLEs, or the premium live events. I still keep up with the TV tapings. WWE recently announced a landmark streaming rights worth $5 billion with Netflix. Did you hear about this?
Nope.
Not long after that, then the company welcomed The Rock into their board of directors. So
Didn't know that one.
So just days after the Royal Rumble, one of the biggest wrestling events of the year that even casual fans who don't watch regularly like to catch, we get this piece of news. So it was reported that Vince McMahon resigned from his positions. Again. Did you know that this isn't the first time that this has happened?
Nope. When was the first time that happened?
Back in 2022, and which we'll get to. Basically a week ago, the Wall Street Journal reported a lawsuit from a former employee, Janelle Grant, who alleged that Vince McMahon promised her a job and later promotions and all these gifts and all that shit in exchange for sex. That about right?
Yeah.
Grant's lawsuit includes allegations that Vince McMahon trafficked her to other men inside and outside of the company, including a guy by the name of John Laurinaitis, who is a former wrestler who worked in the company's talent relations department and was also named as a defendant in the lawsuit. Do you know who John Laurinaitis is, Greg?
Sadly, no.
So he was head of talent relations, and he was also the one that was partly to blame for the female talent being largely lingerie models than legit women wrestlers during the so-called Divas era. He literally would handpick these people out of lingerie catalogs. So for a long time, everybody said, oh my God, WWE is unfair to women. They're treating them as sex objects. Well, John Laurinaitis, you have the blame for that. It's not like today where you have Charlotte Flair and Becky Lynch and Rhea Ripley that have legitimized the women's division as it is now. A lot more so than it used to be 8 years ago. But here's the thing. John Laurinaitis, as he was allegedly involved in these disturbing things, you have to realize that he did these affairs while his wife had brain cancer.
Oof.
Yeah. Oof. And when this guy got ousted from his position a couple years ago, all of us fans were saying, bye-bye, asshole. Now, WWE is not shy of controversy surrounding the company. Greg, did you know that there is a convicted rapist still in their Hall of Fame?
Nope.
You know who that convicted rapist is?
Who?
Mike Tyson.
Oh, yeah. I think I've heard that name before.
Yeah, the baddest man on the planet. He was responsible for a big storyline that also involves Stone Cold, but still, convicted rapist. You also know who else is in the Hall of Fame, Greg?
Who?
Donald Trump.
How?
Celebrity wing. Donald Trump did a big storyline back in the early noughts that involved Vince McMahon getting his head shaved. But again, if you don't like Donald Trump, which I'm sure half my listeners don't, that should piss you off if you hate the guy, right? Like, why is this guy in the WWE Hall of Fame?
I have no idea.
Do you ever remember Sunny?
No.
That's okay. She, in 1997, was the most downloaded female person on the planet on AOL. Hot blonde in a bikini. Why wouldn't you want to download that if you had a 56K modem back in those days? But she's still in the Hall of Fame despite her DUIs and the fact that she just fucking killed someone under the influence.
Ooh.
Yeah. Oof. Hulk Hogan, back in 2015, he was temporarily given the Chris Benoit treatment when he had his racial comments surfacing.
I recall you did a video on that one.
Yeah, I did do something about that a while ago. So the point is, WWE is not the squeaky clean company it's trying to portray itself to be.
Oh, yeah.
As you're finding out, Greg, did you know that this is not the first time that Vince McMahon himself has been accused or has been in legal trouble over these matters?
Nope.
So 1992, you had this woman, Rita Chatterton, who was a referee, claimed that Vince McMahon raped her in 1986.
Ugh.
Yeah. Ugh. And there was an alleged tanning salon incident back in 2006 and 2011 where workers accused Vince McMahon of sexual harassment.
Ugh.
And again, he just seemed to get away scot-free. So now you're asking me, like, what happened in 2022? In June of 2022, Vince had stepped down in the wake of a hush money scandal, which we'll go into detail in a second. And then he announced his retirement in July of 2022. Vince McMahon's daughter, Stephanie, was announced as the chairwoman and the co-CEO of the company, and she even made an appearance on TV as these allegations were being revealed, saying, you know, hey, my dad is retired. We can thank him for his contributions. Thank you, Vince, blah, blah, blah. And again, I was a fan of watching the product thinking, all right, cool. Vince is gone. End of the era. Triple H is finally in charge of creative. He's doing a good job. Compared to what was previously being presented back in a few years prior, it looked like things were finally like on the up. We thought Vince was gone back in 2022. And then Vince came back in late 2022 and he retook his position and he brought back some of his guys with him. And then Stephanie McMahon left. And all of those who were watching were just shocked. WWE merged with UFC in a deal with Endeavor to form the company TKO. So yeah, did you know that WWE and UFC are now part of the same company?
I think I've heard about that one.
It looks like Vince McMahon was brought back for the business dealings. But then by October 2023, it was announced that Triple H was once again in charge of creative. Vince McMahon was no longer involved in that aspect.
Mm-hmm.
So do you know what happened that led to this initial retirement in 2022?
No, what?
Okay, so back in April of 2022, the WWE board began investigating a $3 million hush money settlement that McMahon had with the former employee. Yeah, the same one we're talking about. And this thing also involved John Laurinaitis, you know, the guy who fucked somebody else while his wife had cancer. The main reason was simply because it was done using company money rather than out of Vince's personal checkbook. So they were trying to figure out where this missing company money went.
Mm-hmm.
So because of this, they found other non-disclosure agreements over the years, which totaled $12 million. And by October 2022, WWE had disclosed $19.6 million in unrecorded payments Vince McMahon had made to settle sexual misconduct claims between 2006 and 2022.
Uh-huh.
This is a pattern, right?
Yep.
Do you remember WCW in the 90s? Ever hearing about that company back then, Greg?
Nope.
Okay, WCW, another wrestling company that eventually Vince McMahon bought in 2001. Do you know how much he bought WCW for?
I think it's something like $1 billion or something.
$2.5 million.
Whoa.
Yeah, you heard that correctly, Greg. Vince McMahon has paid more money for sex than he did an entire wrestling company.
Sheesh.
Like, what the hell is with this guy?
I have no idea.
Now, you also got to remember that Vince had a history of not paying the territories he bought out. So it shouldn't be surprised when, as you find out, Janelle Grant said that Vince nullified the NDA she signed when Vince started stiffing her the money he promised her when this relationship ended. So, I'm not going to lie, Greg, back in 2022, when the NDA stuff was coming out, I remember a lot of us were thinking, oh, good for Vince. The dude's pushing 80 and he's still out fucking younger women nearly half his age and paying girlfriends with company money. They're all bad people, but oh well. Rock on, Vince. That's what a lot of people were thinking. But when the actual details of this lawsuit came out and the nature of this quote-unquote relationship was revealed, one cannot help but think, holy shit, what the fuck is wrong with this guy?
Oh, yeah.
Greg, do you know how many pages this lawsuit is?
Nope. Tell me.
67 pages.
Oof.
And it is readily available, and anyone can simply Google search it. And if you read the lawsuit, be forewarned, each accusation gets worse than the previous one. And even if one goes over what the news size reports, Greg, isn't this disturbing?
Yes, really disturbing.
I have to warn you, the things we will mention are not for the faint of heart. So if you don't want to hear anything gross or controversial, then just go ahead and skip ahead to the timestamp we'll list in the description. You ready for this, Greg?
Oh, bring it.
Oh my God. So the lawsuit alleges that Janelle Grant met Vince McMahon because he had a penthouse in the same building she lived at in Connecticut. Her family had passed away and she was going through hardship. And the resident manager, or the building manager, I should say, just kind of got her to meet him in hopes that maybe Vince could help her out with a job and turn things around. Now you can question, well, how destitute really was Janelle Grant if she lived in the same high-rise as Vince McMahon? I mean, living in a high-rise in Connecticut is not fucking cheap.
Yep.
But obviously she was desperate enough because she endured more than the average person should have. You know how old she was according to the reports?
How old was she?
They say she was in her late 30s, early 40s. But maybe they're hiding that. Some might even say that she could have been in her early 20s. Therefore, she could have been a very young girl who probably never had a real job. And if she spent all those years caring for her sick relatives who passed away, then who knows?
Uh-huh.
Now, the point is, she was put in a very tough situation, especially because allegedly they lost the family home to bankruptcy. So she must not have been experienced enough in any of these things that opened the door for Vince to do what she said that he did.
Mm-hmm.
So if you listen to podcasts from figures who are both in and out of the wrestling world, almost all the people who work with Vince McMahon have stories of how much of a master manipulator he is, especially when it comes to something that he wants to get his way in. A gimmick, a storyline, a booking decision, etc. Did you read the part, Greg, where that several meetings about a possible new job at WWE, Vince met Janelle Grant in his underwear?
Didn't know that part.
Oh, good God. That alone, that should have been a red flag, right?
Yes.
Like, shouldn't that be something to tell you to nope the fuck out?
Yes.
But, okay. She went and did it anyway. She knew what she was getting into, some would say. But, as her lawsuit's saying, that she felt trapped and desperate, and Vince took advantage. So Vince literally created this position for her at the company just so she could do what she did at the office. And apparently people knew she was there to do quote unquote nothing. Like imagine working at a company and you know that this attractive looking woman is not really there to do any work at all.
Kind of like the writers of the writer's strike of last year.
How so?
Well, you got to point out in the podcast when we did the rant about it was, well, they are just hiring too many people to be in the writer's room and all that, and they're just sitting there just doing nothing.
Well, in this case, I don't think the people in these writers' rooms are promising these other writers for sex. Well, maybe they are. I don't know. The suit alleges that Vince told her to keep the activities a secret. He threatened that he had world-class legal resources on speed dial to people that become a problem.
Mm-hmm.
Now, the suit also includes screenshot of explicit text messages from Vince to Janelle Grant. So a May 2020 message says, get this, Greg, I'm the only one who owns you and controls who I want to fuck you.
Yeah.
Now, she alleged back in June of 2021, Vince McMahon and another executive, possibly Johnny Ace, locked her in an office at HQ and they took turns sexually assaulting her while other staff were in the building working.
Ooh.
And then 8 days later, Vince forced himself on her in a massage table. And then she received $15,000 in Bloomingdale's gift cards. She also said that Vince shared explicit photos and videos of her without her consent to various people, including talent, and even directed her to have sex with them. Yeah, and the group apparently laughed when he said in this group text, well, she may scream and try to say no, although it'd be difficult to say anything with a cock down her throat.
That's disturbing.
And again, these text messages are readily available if you see this lawsuit. But it's almost like Vince is some immature teenager discovering swear words in an R-rated movie for the first time. He's supposed to be 75. My parents are the same age and they don't act like this.
They may, people like that, they may grow old, their bodies may grow old, but inside they're probably still a teenager.
Very much so. People that worked with him 20 years ago have said this is not the same Vince McMahon that they knew in the office in those days. Like all of a sudden he's in his 70s and he's decided to do this shit.
Perhaps someone screwed him literally and, well, fried his brain or something.
Who really knows? And then again, this is the same guy who was revealed to conjure up a gimmick for a man based on his ability to throw up on command. He's gonna puke! He's gonna puke! That's an infamous clip from a Beyond the Mat documentary. Yeah, imagine the gimmick he comes up with you is the person who pukes on camera.
Oh, that image in my head that we just mentioned. Ugh.
Yeah.
Yeah,
and
I don't want.
Now, again, this is the same guy who approved a stupid storyline involving necrophilia. Oh, yeah. It's gone there before.
Okay.
Now, she said, get this, she forcefully used sex toys on her, including dildos he named after WWE wrestlers.
Okay. That one.
Oh, my God.
No, that one just had to make me laugh. I'm sorry.
It is. No, it's like, it's ridiculous. This guy, this is what he does. Like, I hate to make, it's like, you don't really want to make jokes about it. If people who do write jokes about it, the comedy writes itself. It's like, talk about the meaning of Andre the Giant.
Boy.
Like, good God. What, does one named after Stone Cold, is it ice cold if they put it in the freezer?
Oh my gosh.
Like, oh man. Again, folks, we know this is disturbing stuff that came out in the lawsuit, but when you're told that he names his sex toys after WWE wrestlers, it's hard not to laugh at how ridiculous it is.
True.
Now, Janelle Grant, she said that McMahon instructed her to make personalized, sexualized content for a WWE superstar and former UFC champion that he was trying to re-sign. Now, do you know who this former WUFC champion would be?
No, who?
Brock Lesnar. So after the star agreed to a new contract, Vince said, well, part of the deal was him fucking you. So apparently this former UFC champion asked her to send a video of herself urinating. And then when she did, he called her a bitch. And oh my God, Greg, please tell me you heard this one. She said that he defecated on her head during a threesome.
Oh my gosh.
Yes. Oh. And apparently forced her to continue offing the people despite his shit in her hair.
Jeez Louise.
Oh my God.
I thought Amber Heard was bad.
Talk about the new meaning of shitting on someone's bed.
Indeed.
Oh my goodness. And again, even the Wall Street Journal reported this. Like, if you read the Wall Street Journal initial entry that went over stuff in the lawsuit, This article in Wall Street Journal made it seem like they were breaking more ground than Penthouse did. This isn't even young Vince either. This is Vince McMahon in his mid-70s who thinks dyeing his hair and growing a mustache suddenly makes him look different. Have you even seen recent photos of this guy?
Nope.
He looks like someone AI generated him into a scene when he wasn't previously there. He doesn't look natural at all anymore. Now, unless being with someone 30 to 40 years older than her is a kink of hers, I don't think Janelle would have found this guy attractive looking at all.
Same thing with Madonna.
Vince McMahon still looks better than Madonna, sad to say. Now, I mean, Vince McMahon, he's old. He probably shat on her head because he couldn't hold it any longer. Oh my God.
Attention, the emergency has passed. All clear. Resume normal activities.
So, we'll stop with the disturbing stuff being mentioned in the lawsuit at this point. For those of you who actually endured and did listen, I'm sorry you had to hear this shit. But for those of you who did skip to the point, it's totally understood why you would not have wanted to hear any of this. Greg, would you have wanted to skip over if you heard any of this shit?
Yeah.
Sorry you had to hear it. Although you also, in research, did learn about some of this stuff.
Indeed.
So on this channel, I have discussed disturbing things in other videos, not to promote them, but to help raise awareness. Greg, I'm sure you can think of another video where I really talked about disturbing shit.
You mean like the trashing on cuties and all that?
Exactly. If it's horrible, there is no boundary with me. We have to trash crap that is horrible. We are not glorifying at all what Vince McMahon is doing. We're not laughing at what Vince McMahon is doing. We are trashing what Vince McMahon did.
Yep.
You have to remember that all of this is coming to light because what did Vince do again, Greg?
He used to pay that lady, but I don't think he's no longer paying her anymore.
So he's stiffing her. Imagine how many NDAs he signed and paid off, and these people have not come forward. Think about who he has screwed over because of the money and power he has. One can wonder, how many female talents did he have inappropriate relationships with over the years?
1,000, maybe.
Oh. I don't think he's gone that far, but there's even rumors of him doing it with some of the top male talent as far back as the 90s. Yes, there are rumors about that shit.
I just hope he didn't think about, I don't know, sodomizing them or something.
That's pretty much what I'm saying.
Ugh.
Yeah. Now, one can wonder what motivated him to go with this quote-unquote relationship with Janelle Grant. Greg, how many billions of dollars was the Netflix deal worth again?
$5 billion.
So this company is getting $5 billion and Vince stiffs her? You know how many billions of dollars Vince McMahon is worth? So what is another $2 million to him? It also makes you wonder, like someone worth that much would use company money to pay the NDAs instead of out of his own personal pocketbook. If he did that, he wouldn't have been caught. So it's fascinating to see that somebody stiffing another person on a hush money NDA is ultimately what led to this guy's exit from the company. After so many other things that this guy could have been in jail for. You can say innocent and proven guilty. You can say she's lying. You can say she's trying to get more money out of Vince. Well, of course she is. Vince stopped paying her.
Yep.
Some can even guess that because it took her so long to break away, that she probably enjoyed parts of it, which I know is a really fucked up thing to say. The thing is, as we mentioned before, she's not the first person to come forward with allegations like this. That means a number of women with tales similar to Grant's is possibly in the multiples. And we already know Vince has spent a lot of money on NDAs in the past. So even if over 99% of what Grant is saying is a lie, would you say that any one of those things, if they were true, is still way over the line for an executive and their employee?
Yes.
And this isn't an isolated incident. It's a series of claims that line up with the behavior pattern of this guy that spans decades. Almost as if the evil Mr. McMahon character that we saw feuding with Stone Cold is basically the real life Vince McMahon.
Oh, yeah.
This is the same guy who helped cover up the 1983 murder that Jimmy Snuka was involved with. He dealt with the Ring Boy scandal in 1990. Look that up. This is the same guy who stood trial in federal court over his wrestlers using steroids. This is the guy who had to deal with the death of Owen Hart.
Ooh.
Then he dealt with a sexual harassment lawsuit from Sable. Remember her?
Nope.
That's fine. Then there was an Ashley Mazzaro incident that happened in Kuwait. And let's not forget about the stuff surrounding Chris Benoit, which in wrestling, when it comes to a company cutting all mentions and ties over said wrestler over horrific acts, gave birth to the phrase the Benoit treatment. So despite all these scandals and incidents over the years, this guy has genuinely been able to scrape by without a scratch thanks to his charisma and influence. This is the same guy who, when the initial 2022 stuff came out from the Wall Street Journal, he did a victory lap appearance on TV. And I bet you if this was 1999, he would have come out and said, "Yeah, I fucked them all."
Ugh.
But that was back when he was 100% in charge of the company, and times have changed. He can't do that shit anymore. He can't act like he's still in charge. And yeah, now it has come full circle with the sex trafficking lawsuit that has Vince's DNA all over it. Pun intended. So it isn't just Vince. There's most definitely high-ranking WWE officials that knew what he was doing and allowed it to let it happen. So would you say, Greg, whoever let it happen should all be held accountable?
Oh, hell yes.
Now, Vince McMahon, yeah, he's an accomplished person who did a lot of great things. He gave us people like Stone Cold, Hulk Hogan, Undertaker, The Rock, John Cena. But he's proven to be very much a horrible human being. And more, it's just coming out.
Oh, yeah.
Do you think he's going to end up in jail?
I'm not sure. Because if he pays himself to get out of there, might have it all over again.
Yeah, hopefully if it doesn't end up in jail, he stayed out of the public eye. Now, I'm sure over the next year or so, more and more of these top-ranking officials who were quote-unquote Vince's guys are going to step down, or it's going to come out that they were part of it. They're already giving Vince McMahon the Benoit treatment on the promotional stuff for the company. Triple H in a press conference at the Royal Rumble just deflected the question, saying he'd rather focus on the other things that they've been doing. Okay, so, I mean, when the allegations came out, Slim Jim pulled their sponsorship out, but then once the news that Vince McMahon was gone, Slim Jim said, okay, we'll keep sponsoring.
Honestly, I think they shouldn't have done that.
You think they should have pulled out permanently?
Yeah.
So I don't think ultimately this will ruin the company. I think they will do just fine. They have a stacked roster of talent. And it's not like the old days where it's just one or two people that are drawing money. Like there's dozens of people that could all be considered main event draws that put people in the seats. And even if you're not a fan of pro wrestling, you can choose not to follow WWE because of the Vince stuff. And that's perfectly fine. I mean, even I can admit, being a fan of WWE on and off for 20 years, it's felt like being in an abusive relationship. Another pun intended. Now, if you want to watch AEW, go right ahead. I'm sure Tony Khan would love your viewership as he books his wrestlers like he's playing with his action figures. Now, if you want to stick with the indie scene and support them, go right ahead. This isn't right after Vince McMahon bought WCW. WWE is no longer the only major game in town, and there's lots of former main eventers that are doing just fine elsewhere. So there's probably some of you who think Janelle Grant had this coming, or you could be thinking, what kind of woman in her right mind goes and meets with a man in his underwear over a job opportunity and doesn't get his intentions right away? Thing is, we're not Janelle. Nobody is. This is a tragic tale for her. And while there are definitely women who have gone through the same sort of thing, nobody can say they can relate to what Janelle had to endure. Now, lots of people, no matter what sex, go through experiences like this, whether it's a promise of a new job, promotion, just an opportunity in general that people would kill to do. It isn't just Vince McMahon. This happens a lot in the entertainment industry, and I'm pretty sure there's lots of cases where it happens in the executive business world or even the political world.
Uh-huh.
None of it is okay, and none of it should be condoned or normalized in today's society. This is probably another example of the Weinstein effect. It's part of just a group of famous and powerful people with sexual misconduct allegations.
Mm-hmm.
You remember Danny Masterson, right?
I remember now.
Okay. But then he got convicted for rape.
Mm-hmm.
So, and he got 30 years for what he did. So imagine what Vince could get if convicted. I've heard they're asking for a jury trial for this matter. If you're in the jury, Greg, and you listen to what this lawsuit said, would you let Vince McMahon go scot-free?
Hell no.
No, not at all.
I would just keep him locked up.
That's right. So I think our prediction is Vince McMahon is cooked. But only time will tell. So with that said, the diner is closed. Thank you for listening to this stuff about these really disturbing allegations that Vince McMahon is being accused of. Only time will tell what the actual verdict is going to happen. And then in the meantime, we will talk other things too. We'll talk pop culture. We'll talk politics, whatever we feel is necessary. And if there's another topic that you wish we should cover in the diner, then please say so in the comments below. And also, if you want to talk to us directly, please join the Discord server. Links are in the description. I'm Desert Couch 22. Thanks for listening.